Welcome to a new episode of Positive Talk Daily. We're on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Mr. Positive Live. Today we're talking about the iPhone 16e. Should you even upgrade to this phone? This is an inexpensive iPhone. This is the lowest priced iPhone you can get in the 16 series of devices. Now, kind of like we did a video, check out the video we did talking about should you upgrade from the, say, iPhone 11 to the iPhone 16, or should you just wait for the 17 series? Let's get into it right now. The iPhone 16e was released about 2 months ago, and it's a pretty decent selling phone. It's doing pretty good on most carriers, and it's got a really decent thing going for it. It's a 6.1-inch Retina HD display. You're getting a decent overall package here. You're getting the A18 chipset with one less core than the standard iPhone 16, but you're pretty much getting the same performance overall. You're getting a single 48 megapixel camera, which is capable of 4K 60. It's capable of slow motion. It's capable, and this phone's also got Apple's Intelligence. So Apple Intelligence is on this with also Chat GPT on board. So if we look closely at the 16e, it's a pretty nice phone across the board. You get your 48 megapixel camera right there. You know, you got your power button. You know, if you hold the power button and you do get Apple Intelligence, what's the forecast for Lewiston, Maine? You know, it's going to give you Apple Intelligence. So I'll do it again. What's the forecast for Lewiston, Maine? Gives us your forecast. Pretty simple. It can also talk to you using Siri. It does have Chat GPT built in on here as well. So you got all the Apple Intelligence on here. So you're pretty much getting the iPhone 16 experience outside of one core. You may not notice that one core. Apple tells us that one core was more for gaming efficiency, but it also helps with the battery life and makes this phone probably the best iPhone for battery life outside the 16 Pro and Pro Max. So you're getting pretty good battery life with a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, stereo speakers, Type-C charging up to 20 watts, stereo speakers here, stereo speaker at the top, and you do get, and we're going to get to some drawbacks here on the phone as well. Unlike the 16 Pro Max, you don't get MagSafe, and that's an issue. A lot of people who utilize Samsung phones, they want to have MagSafe on their 16 Pro Max. You're also missing Dynamic Island like we have here on this 16 Pro Max. So a lot of people want the latest and greatest, but they're not going to get MagSafe. Now, there are ways around MagSafe. You could basically buy like a case like this case here has MagSafe. So you could hook this up to a MagSafe charger. It's magnetized. So using a MagSafe charger like a Pelican case, which is around $40, is actually a good idea. As you can see, you don't get the Dynamic Island like you do here, and you just don't get there's a few other things, you just don't get the 3 cameras like you would on the standard 16 Pro Max, and you're missing the ultra-wide camera that you would find on your standard iPhone 16. The question is, you know, really, should you stick with a standard iPhone 16, 16 Plus, 16 Pro, or the Pro Max? Or should you wait until the iPhone 17? Now, depending on what iPhone you're coming from, we're talking more in the 16e series. You know, depending on if you're coming from, say, like, if you're coming from like an older iPhone, from like iPhone, let's say 10s Max, iPhone 10, you're going to have that same look. iPhone 10 has the notch. It's a little bit wider the notch, but you're going to get the notch all the way from iPhone 10, 10s, all the way up to iPhone 11, even the iPhone 10R, which is similar to this phone in a lot of ways. You're going to be getting pretty much that same type of performance. So you're getting pretty much the same, you know, chin. You're getting that same, you pretty much get that same look from all the way down to the iPhone 10 to this. So you're pretty much getting a recycled look. Now the original iPhone, you know, SE 2022, and then the SE from 2023, obviously, 2022 I should say, pretty much had the old iPhone 8 recycled body. So they basically just recycled it threw a A15 Bionic chip in there and called it good and kept the they pretty much kept the fingerprint scanner. So this phone is giving you quite a bit. You're just getting face unlock here. You don't have a way to unlock the phone with your finger. You can use glasses. It's just face unlock. It's pretty simple. It works like it's supposed to. So if you're coming from one of those iPhones like a second generation SE or the third generation SE, this is pretty much worth the upgrade. I'd almost consider it. If you're coming from a 5-year-old iPhone SE second generation, which, don't get me wrong, those chipsets still work very, very good, especially the SE third generation. I would definitely upgrade to this. You're getting a much larger screen. You're getting an OLED panel. You're going from a 4.7-inch Retina display to a OLED display. You're getting 800 nits of brightness versus 500 nits of brightness. You're getting a more efficient chipset, better battery life. That was one of the problems with the 2020 iPhone SE and the third generation. You were getting awful battery life. Like, you'd be having to charge it within 3 or 4 hours. Now, it did give you wireless charging, which was actually better wireless charging than this one. This one only gives you 7 watts. Let's get into the negatives of the iPhone 16e. That we start with no MagSafe. Okay, there is no MagSafe. Unless you purchase a mag charger, a mag case, something that has MagSafe. You could buy a case that gives you the MagSafe connectivity, and that will work. But you're only going to get about 7 watts if it's MagSafe with a wireless charger. Okay, you can get 20 watts with the standard charger. Overall, you're also getting one camera. You're missing the ultra wide. If they didn't add this ultra wide, like let's say they did add a little ultra wide camera, it could have been a 2 megapixel ultra wide. Didn't have to be like a 10 megapixel or 5 megapixel, but they could have done something. Even a 5 megapixel ultra wide would have still been better than no ultra wide camera. Now, Apple claims that this can do what 2 cameras can do. So you could take 2 sensors and put them into one. Basically using Apple Intelligence. Basically, this phone is using Apple Intelligence plus the A18 chipset to give you processed photos. You can get 2 times zoom, but it's processed. Basically, it's cropped. It's not like a real 2 times zoom. It's basically cropping it. So basically, it's all advertisement from Apple, and people are going to buy this. This is an iPhone. This is an iPhone. They might buy it for their kids. They might buy it for a teenager. They might buy it for a grandmother, grandfather. These are going to sell like hotcakes. They're already selling more than the original iPhone SE did. So this is doing really, really well. Now, it is a recycled body of the iPhone 14. Again, you're not getting dynamic island. That is one of them. You're not getting an ultra-wide camera. But the 48-megapixel camera on here is pretty solid. Right now I'm recording on an iPhone 16 Pro Max. And if I was recording with this, you would not be able to tell. So it's a pretty solid phone overall in general. Again, the gripes with the phone, only one camera. Google's giving you the A9, the Pixel A9, which gives you 2 cameras, and it's pretty much priced at the same price. Here you're going to get better performance than the Pixel A9. Yes, you're getting a Tensor chipset on there, but you're going to get better performance overall. You're getting 8 gigs of storage on board. No 120 hertz refresh rate, not even 90 hertz. Now, there's talk, like I said in my first video, of iPhone 17 getting maybe a 90 hertz refresh rate or 120 hertz. We'll have to see. Even 90 hertz is still better than the 60 hertz. But because the panel here is so small, you really don't notice it in everyday usage. You really don't notice it with basic usage. You really have to be looking at it from a standpoint. You really have to be looking at it from kind of far away to notice what this phone can do. Overall, this is a decent phone. The 48 megapixel camera does a really solid job. You do get wireless charging. You just got to understand there is no MagSafe. You will have to buy accessories. You'll have to buy a case in order to use this as a MagSafe device. Okay. Most phones, most iPhones, if you're coming, let's just say you're coming from an iPhone 13, all the way up, I would say skip out on this phone because I would say if it's the 12 and up, the 12 is going to have another few years of updates. And the thing is, the 12 gives you 2 cameras. You're getting 5G. You're getting MagSafe. 13 gives you MagSafe. It gives you 5G. It gives you 2 cameras. And the cameras on the iPhone 13 are just as good. It may not be a 48 megapixel sensor, but it's still a relatively good phone. This looks like an iPhone 13, just take away an extra camera. Okay? Apple was trying to, cut corners, getting rid of MagSafe, getting rid of, the dynamic island, which I don't think that would have really mattered, really, if they had just put that on here anyway. I don't know how much that would cost Apple to do that. They could have also just released the iPhone 15 and reduced the price of the cost of the iPhone 15, just say, okay, you know what, we're going to, instead of releasing this phone, they could have easily just said, okay, we're going to reduce the 15 down $200 or $300, and that would have sold like hotcakes. You wouldn't have had to release this phone because it's the same size, you're just missing dynamic island. iPhone 15 gives you a brighter screen at 1,000 nits. I believe it's 1,500 nits or something like that. This is 800 nits. Now, it's not terrible, but it's not an iPhone 15. iPhone 15 is also giving you the ultra-wide camera, so on this one you're missing out. Supposedly Apple says you can do ultra-wide with the first lens there. That's only 2 times zoom. That's not ultra-wide. That's cropped. Okay. The photos on here, because this is the main camera you'll get on an iPhone 16 Pro and the standard edition as well. So you're getting the main sensor, you're just not getting the ultra-wide camera, which kind of sucks, okay? You do get Apple Intelligence, so you're able to do all the Apple Intelligence stuff. You're able to do Chat GPT and all that fun jazz. So if you're looking for something like that, you come to the right place. This phone will be just fine for people who are looking for Chat GPT and Apple, AI. Now, if you're on an older, say, iPhone 15, 14, and 13, you can still download ChatGPT. You can still download Google Gemini, which is 10 times better than Apple Intelligence. Okay? They're still in the beta with Apple Intelligence. So, they're telling people at Apple that if you purchase a phone that's like an iPhone 15, it won't get Apple Intelligence. That's BS. I think they could release a patch that could easily put it, some of the Apple Intelligence onto the iPhone 15. They put it on the 15 Pro Max. So if the 15 Pro Max can't handle it, why is it on this? It's kind of like a scam, you know what I mean? If they could put it on a 15 Pro Max, running the iPhone 17 Pro chip, and the iPhone 15 has the A16 chipset, it's more than capable. The problem is, Apple says that they have to have 8 gigs of RAM on board to do it. But, we can use Google Gemini on a phone that has less than 3 gigs of RAM, so it doesn't really add up. They're just making you go out and buy more stuff. And the same goes when you buy one of Apple's products. It's a good phone and all, but you're stuck with just this cable. And they expect you to go out and buy accessories. They remove the charging port, and you're stuck buying. The only thing you get in the package is this, and some booklets, and that's it. It's no longer a removable SIM. You're kind of stuck with the eSIM. So that's pretty much where Apple is in 2025. And if Apple keeps going down this road, they're going to keep losing in sales. Samsung's already catching up to them. They own more than half the sales of phones right now in the United States. So it doesn't make any sense what Apple's doing. You're releasing a phone. This is a $600 smartphone. Now, I don't hate the phone. This phone's been getting a lot of gripe online. This is a solid phone from Apple. They've done a really solid job with the build quality. You're still getting the same build qualities you would find on the 16 standard edition. You're getting the same, OLED display, same PPI. You're just missing the dynamic island, which nobody cares, The camera's still fairly good. You can still record in 4K. The camera's great on this phone, but they've cut corners. When you start cutting corners like this, then it becomes an issue. Removing a camera when they could have just simply added a 5 megapixel ultra wide doesn't have to be as good. Obviously, you're cutting corners Just add other cameras from, like, say, an iPhone 8 or something, you know? I would rather see them go 2 generations with the camera and bring back the iPhone 8 camera and at least put a ultra-wide camera on there. You know, the A18 chipset could have easily done the processing for images. The way they've done this is it's just kind of weird because they're charging people. This phone should retail for $300. Plain and simple, $300. Even with an ultra wide. So this should be a $300 smartphone, $299, $250. That's about right. $300, this would be definitely a go. I mean, I can't tell someone, if you're coming from like a 13, a 12, if you're coming from an iPhone 12, do not upgrade to this. If you're coming from, say, an iPhone 13, which has 2 cameras, yes, they're running a 12 megapixel, but at least you're getting you're getting an ultra wide. You're not getting an ultra wide on here. So, you're paying about the same price if you go to a carrier. This is $199. If you port in your phone number to Boost Mobile or any of those carriers, you can get this phone for pretty much the same price by getting an iPhone 13. Yes, it's about 3 or 4 years older. The iPhone 13 is about 4 years older, but you're still getting the same body, the same screen size, the same dimensions. This is actually an iPhone 13 case. You know what I'm saying? And iPhone 13s are still sold on most carriers right now. So, even an iPhone 14 would be a better deal than this. No offense, it just would be. I'm not saying this phone isn't passable. Apple, bring this down to $300. Then people will buy it. I'm not saying you got to add a case to it. Add a brick, a charging brick. That would be nice, but I mean, you're recycling a phone. All you pretty much have done is put a updated chipset. I'm not telling people not to buy this phone, but this is why people are getting so much gripe about this phone. That's why so many people complained about this phone. It's like you're going out charging this. This is like $650 on Apple's website. You go to the Apple store, they're charging almost $700 for the 512 gig model. That's almost the price of an iPhone 16 standard edition. And you're getting the same chipset but more cameras, better screen. This is the problem with Apple. They're like, oh, we'll just sell this for $100 less. People will still buy it. Yeah, they will, under one consideration: stop cutting corners. People aren't stupid. Apple's starting to lose sales because of the stupidity. You're releasing a phone, which this is a nice phone. It's got a really nice panel, but when you turn it around, you're like, it's only got one camera. It's 2025. Even if you just added a 5 megapixel ultra wide and then have that main camera and maybe change the camera up a little bit, maybe the layout of the camera, that would have at least made the phone look a little bit different. And people might be like, wow, hey, at least it's got a second camera on there. People want that ultra wide. You know what I mean? You're cutting corners by removing all cinematic modes and taking out ultra wide modes and claiming that this can do 2 times zoom, which it can, but it's cropped. It's not a real 2 times zoom. That's cropped. So the phone overall, like, the build quality is great. The fact that it's got 20-watt fast charging is decent. The fact that it's got stereo speakers. The fact that they didn't cut any corners with the screen, just the brightness a little bit. And you're getting the A18 Bionic chip. The A18 chipset. So, you're still getting really solid performance. This is one of the top 3 best chipsets right now in 2025. So nobody can complain about performance. You're getting 8 gigs of RAM. You're getting Apple Intelligence. So if you're someone that likes that type of stuff, it's a good deal. But Apple needs to take the price down. And if you want more sales are doing okay for this phone, but you got to bring down the price. And until you do that, this phone is just going to struggle like the 3rd generation iPhone SE did. They released a phone like this with the iPhone 13 mini, and that could have easily been the SE4. Basically, they're releasing all these little phones. They had the SE mini, the 13 mini could have easily been this phone, just brought down with a secondary camera. Even the 13 mini is better than this in some cases because you get 2 cameras. You don't even get 2 cameras with this. So I understand the formula. You remove that camera. Now, the camera in here is decent, but it's definitely not going to beat the iPhone 15. iPhone 15 is probably the phone to get. You're getting the ultra-wide. You're getting a normal iPhone. You're still getting the same 48-megapixel sensor on the 15 as you do on the 16, but better dynamic pictures, better image quality on the 15. Yes, this can take pretty good still photos and probably in some areas better, but it's because of the A18 chipset that will help with the processing. But overall, you're getting that cinematic mode on iPhone 15. You're getting maybe not as good battery life, but you're getting a brighter display. You're getting dynamic island. So you're actually getting more with the iPhone 15 than you are with this phone. On this phone, the benefits are bigger battery than the 15. You're getting a bigger battery than the 16 model as well, the standard 16 iPhone. And you're also getting a better chipset than the 15. So the better chipset, it's a newer phone, so it'll have updates longer, obviously, bigger battery, and that's about it. You're not getting MagSafe. You will get that on the 15. MagSafe, brighter screen, slightly bigger display. You're getting dynamic island. You can remove this here. So basically, if you're coming from an iPhone, maybe 11, maybe it's time to look at an upgrade, but I would get the 15. This one, it's a good phone, and you can check out the videos we did. I'm not bashing the phone. I think if you like a phone like this, it's great if you're coming from an SE2, SE3, maybe even the first generation iPhone SE. That is who it's for. If you're an iPhone person who needs the most out of your iPhone, this is not it. Now, if you need all-day battery life, this is great. But if it's just going to be used for occasional usage, this phone isn't going to be for you. For Mr. Positive Live, I'm Mr. Positive. Pass on this iPhone 16e. I'm not putting it down. It's for those who are coming from a first-generation iPhone SE, second or third generation. You will notice really good performance with this if you're coming from an old iPhone SE. This is mainly aimed for kids, teenagers, and older adults who are maybe on a budget. This is a really decent phone that they can package for free when you sign up for service on like Boost Mobile and Metro by T-Mobile. It's comparable to something like an A series Samsung phone or something like that. As far as trying to sell this as a $600 phone, you got to release the price down. Once you start bringing the price down to Apple, people will buy this.